Okay, so this meeting came about, the whole theme for this meeting came about when I think Sigrid really kicked it off when we were at Joomla Day Dach, and the discussion that was held about J2 Store, because the news had just been released that J2 Store was closing, and they were pulling out from it and just making it open in the GitHub repository, and people were talking about other stores. And then we had the Joomla London last month, and I spoke to Roland and said, would he be able to do a talk on how to move away from J2 Store for those that wanted to move away. But in that time, Olivier and Adam got together and have basically changed the whole landscape. So I'd like to hand over to both Olivier and Adam, who are going to explain what J2 Store is becoming or has become. Over to you.
What made you decide to move that way?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I'll let Olivier start off, and then he can hand to me, when he's done, and then I'll take it from there.
I was sad to hear the news about J2 Store going away, especially that I knew a lot of people around me, around the people I know from Joomla who were using it. So I was kind of annoyed in a way that was going to happen, and they could jeopardize some of the clients these people had. So that was my first initial thought. And then one day I got a call from Adam, and he said, I'm working with J2 Store, and I see that the project is being terminated, and I want to take it over. And then I was wondering if you would like to do it with me and being one of the developers. And I said, and I was like, Adam, I know him from being a very knowledgeable with J2 Store. He's been mostly the main of his business. And so I knew who I was talking to, and I knew that from the get-go, I knew that he was the perfect partner to be working with on a project like this. So I said, so he asked me if I wanted to think of it, and I said, no, I just know that I want to work with you. I mean, we had been working already on several projects like the guided tours and Joomla Day USA, and so I knew Adam already a little bit, and so it was no brainer for me to say yes right away. So that's how I got to get involved with J2 Store. To be honest, I had never created e-commerce websites before. I never had clients who had those needs, and the few that did really needed very simple things. So I didn't have to install a major e-commerce website solution on their Joomla websites. So that's some kind of a new adventure for me, because I'm new in this kind of e-commerce ecosystem, but at the same time it's very to me it's very empowering, and it's kind of a new start for me as well, because I've been in the business of creating extensions for people for over 10 years now, and this is a different kind of extension, and that's way bigger than I ever worked on. So it's very exciting. And I'm very excited in being working with Adam on this, because it's really something new for me, and working with somebody else, because I've been working on my own for that long, and we're getting to understand how to work with each other, and it's a team, and it's a different dynamic. So
you can almost push it around in a shopping cart, I heard.
Yeah, and then so now that I know he knows how to push a shopping cart, somebody in it. So I feel like I replaced his wife in it, and he's pushing me. into this kind of business. Yeah.
Well, ironically, the shopping cart analogy could be used to all my clients that I help them push their customers into shopping carts. So, um, but no, I appreciate the introduction, Olivier. And, really for me, when I heard the news, I was actually helping a client of mine who's actually on this call right now. We were doing a training, and all of a sudden I started getting messages left and right, about the message. And for anybody that's really been involved in that project for a long time, I think we all kind of saw the writing on the wall. We were just hoping that maybe, there would be more updates or more, attention put in, but we were kind of like stuck in an area for the last couple of years where we couldn't really do much. And there was a lot of people that were waiting for one of their Joomla 3 J2 store extensions to be updated, and it never came. And so they kind of were stuck. And so when the news came, my initial thought was really just sadness, because what it did is it introduced a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt into the community. I knew that if I had to, I could run this thing until the wheels, fell off. But most people can't. And as hard as it seems that, in less than a year, we're going to be rolling into Joomla 6, there were still people that were stuck on 3 because they were waiting for an essential J2 store extension to be updated that never came. So everybody's been kind of stuck in this limbo, and in doing so, it kind of prevents forward progress from happening, and it really prevents you from being able to really take advantage of this holiday season, and really, if you're building it for clients, help change their trajectory. I mean, building a successful store can take somebody from a couple thousand a month to, 100, 200,000 a month if, a lot of factors come into play and everything in between, which could be life changing for a lot of people. So, it's not like building a regular informational site where, they can find a replacement. Sometimes, switching from one store to another is a major process. And that's, I think, where, using the Rose CSVI can really make it easier, but it's still a major disruption regardless of whether you're able to transfer all the data over easily or not, because there's a lot of other factors that come into play. So when this happened, my initial thought was, somebody's got to take it over. And then I started thinking about it that night, and I'm like, there's nobody that knows that spends 10, 12 hours a day on this for the last, 8, 9 years, that knows this like I know it. There's nobody that I know that would do as good of a job. But I also knew this was far too big for one person to take on, and I needed somebody that also could help me bring this closer back to the Joomla core, to make this as close as possible, so that way the integration is seamless and easy. And I just finished working on the Joomla Day site with Olivier, and everybody kept telling me he was super humble and knowledgeable, and I couldn't believe how easy it was to work with him. And also, I realized that he spent a tremendous amount of his time contributing to the Joomla project, contributing to anybody that asked him for help. And so I kept trying to think of some way to, to give him some work or some other jobs that would come through. And he's like, I don't really know J2 Store. I can't really help you. But when this happened, I said, he doesn't need to know J2 Store. What he needs to know is how to be able to, get this integrated into Joomla 6 and all that stuff, the inner workings. He can figure that out. I could show him, when you do this, this is what happens. This is where you find the files. He can take over from there. But and likewise, he needed, that's why, yeah, fear of changing a working shop. Exactly. That's what Brian said. There's a lot of people that are using other systems because it's very hard for them to move. But I feel like if you give somebody a big enough reason, if the why is big enough, as they say, the how is easy. And so I just kept thinking, Olivier would be perfect for this. And so I worked on my sales pitch. I went and called him, and I started, giving him all the reasons before I would ask him. And then he's like, Adam, stop. You don't have to go any further. I'm already in. If you're doing this, let's do this together. And I'm like, oh my God, that was the easiest sales pitch I've ever had in my life. And that's really the way it should be. Um, and so then it was like, all right, let's sit down and figure out really what we're going to do with this. And so the first thing is, look, the last couple of years has really not been the most stable for J2 Store users. And as a power user, I currently have over 55 sites that are using J2 Store that have all been updated, except for one, that have all been updated to Joomla 5. So if anybody has any question about whether they were doing this, whether it would work on Joomla 4 or 5, that should answer your question. I also realized that each one had their own, J2 Store extensions that they needed for what their requirements were. So for the last couple of years, I've already been updating a lot of these plugins myself. And so it wasn't like I'm starting from zero or Olivier starting from zero. We're starting from a lot of work that we've had to do because it wasn't done before. And so the first thing is, look, we're not going to change everything dramatically and freak everybody out. We just need to bring stability. We need to be able to help those that are still stuck on Joomla 3. Let's get them over to Joomla 5 and get everything good. So for those of you that are still running a Joomla 3 J2 Store site and you're waiting for an extension or you don't know, then send us a message and say, hey, I have this extension. It hasn't been updated. We may already have it updated, and if not, we'll update it for you. Like, we will help get you across the finish line. You just got to let us know what we need to do to help you. And then for those that do have bugs, issues, this is a good time. We just opened up our support area on our website. I can share my screen here, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Yes, you should be able to.
So briefly, this is what the J2Commerce site looks like. Olivier and I have both gotten sucked into watching this video over and over again. So, I'll let you guys do that later. But there's a support section that you can go to open up tickets. One of the areas is if you happen to have a migration request, meaning if you have a plugin that's Joomla 3 and you need it to be updated so you can use it, then post that in here, attach that, and we will update it for you, and we'll also add it to our collection that we can offer to everybody. Obviously right now, the biggest item is technical support and blogs. If you find a bug, usually it's probably going to be some leftover junk from the Joomla 3 migration. That it could be a database table that needs to be updated, or other third-party extensions that may be affecting things, but we'll do the best we can to help you. For Joomla 3 issues, unless it's something that settings-wise, where I can go in here and say this is why, we're not really supporting Joomla 3 for J2 Store unless it's involved, hey, what do I need to do in order to update to Joomla 4 or 5? Because we're already going to be on Joomla 6, and as of this latest update 4.0.9, it will not be allowed to be, if you have a Joomla 3 site, you won't be able to use anything from this version onwards to update. You'll have to use one of the earlier versions from up to 4.0.5, and then you can update from there to the latest version. And so because of that, we're going to be clearing out a lot of old stuff from Joomla 3, and so on and so forth. But also for those of you guys that are a little scared or hesitant about the migration, we did make a very easy migration page to show you step by step on exactly what to do. Also, Olivier's been working on the migration helper tool that will make it even easier to show you, like, here, click here, and these are all the extensions you need to turn off first. Then you can go ahead and install it, and then it'll even, after you've gone through the process, it'll even install the latest version for you after you've migrated the site. So it'll make things a lot easier for you to be able to move. The only thing you have to check is to make sure that that any additional J2 Store extensions, whether it's an app or a plugin or a shipping or payment plugin, have been migrated. Now, just because you don't see it in our extensions area doesn't mean we don't have it. We're right now about 55 extensions that we have that have already been updated. We're just testing them and making sure that they work first before we bring them online for you. But the foundation's in place, and while this is all going on, while we've been working on the website, working on now 4 releases to J2 Store, then we still have to take care of our real life stuff. And the reason being is that as of now, we haven't charged anybody for anything. There's a lot of reasons for that. The biggest is we need to bring everybody to at least a good, stable level. And we don't know which ones still have active licenses with J2 Store. So the last thing that we want to do is double charge anybody that doesn't need it. But the idea is that as we get closer to the Joomla 6 version that will be native to Joomla 5 and 6, there will be a certain point where it's going to shift to J2Commerce, or at least in transition to there. And then we'll start a licensing system where, those of you that will want to have continued support and updates on these extensions will have the ability. You'll also have a free version as well, which won't have all the features, but it'll have enough for you to run a basic store on. So there'll be something for everybody. So those of you that don't want to pay for the version, you'll still be able to run your stores. Nothing will affect you. And for those of you that want to have updates and support and everything else that goes with that, then that'll also be there as well. So we're just trying to really catch up for the last couple years on what really hasn't been done, and then we can really have fun, because there's another 30 or 40 extensions, modules that we've created in addition, that I've created for different clients, that we'll be able to start rolling in. So we're going to have a ton of new tools and really extensions that'll help extend your store. With the whole idea is, look, we need to, if you guys are selling more, you're making more money. These things are nothing. It's going to cost nothing compared to what you're going to be able to earn when you're able to convert more of your users into actual sales. So the whole idea here is, look, I don't want to use words like Shopify or WooCommerce, because they have done an amazing job with their communities, but we want to be able to make J2Commerce the e-commerce platform for Joomla that not only will help those of you with existing stores, but will help attract those from other platforms, because they see how powerful Joomla Core is, and the fact that it has a very powerful e-commerce platform that goes with that. So I think that sometimes out of the darkness can have, we could have called it JUG Commerce, but I think it, yeah, I think there's a lot that we could have done and said, but I think that for me, keeping it something that's similar to J2 Store, but not J2 Store, is, it's different and familiar at the same time. But nonetheless, so that's kind of where we're at. Olivier is amazing behind the scenes. A lot of times you won't see a lot of the stuff he's done because he's more under the hood stuff. But if it works well and it runs smooth, then you know that Olivier has got his hands in. And if it looks better than just dog doo-doo, then hopefully that's because I had my hand in it. And we, I didn't break anything in the process. So the migration tool is very, very helpful. And really, we are constantly working on, our support section, the documentation, and everything in between. But what I also wanted to discuss briefly, and how much time do I have?
Yeah, because Adam
You've
can
got
talk.
a good. Well, if we booked you in for at least another half an hour.
Okay, because those of you that know me know I could talk for 7 hours straight about e-commerce.
Yeah, that's why we used to set it to an hour.
Perfect. I wanted to show, a couple sites to show, because I think when I finally started going into the in the Mattermost channels for e-commerce, I realized that a lot of people think J2 Store has been great for simple stores, but not very good for complex stores. And I would say that that couldn't be farther from the truth. And the fact that it's so simple makes it so powerful, because it makes it easier to integrate when you're not having to uh, navigate the Joomla core system and an additional system, or two along the way. So this is actually this Redline Superstore that those of you that have seen other presentations of mine, I use this because this is what started me on my Joomla journey back in
I don't
2009.
seeing what you want to show us.
Oh, okay. Share this tab instead. There we go.
There you
How
go.
about that? Okay, sorry. Okay, so this site here is actually what got me involved in Joomla in 2009. And originally it was a Virtumart store. And the only reason why I actually, it was stayed Virtumart until COVID, when I finally told myself I got to update my own site, and I'm going to update this site even if it's the end of days and everybody's going to die of some weird virus, I'm going to get this freaking site updated. And so this was a major process, and we use Roland's Rose CSVI to do this, because we had to move all the data from a completely different system and then move it into here, but then also match up the filters and everything in between. And we were able to do all of that using spreadsheets and his extensions. So this site would not exist, because this is 7,000 products that had to get moved over. And not only the products themselves, but the actual, there were some advanced variants that are in here that in some cases had 91 different variations, like in this case, that each, depending on which design they click, they could have a design color, or it could have none, or it can have two different ones, design and background color, and each one of these had to be loaded through spreadsheet, and they were loaded for about 400 of these custom type products, in addition to the non-custom ones. But the cool thing about these pages is that all the text is done through language strings in Joomla. So each page is unique, because it grabs pieces of the title and the brand and how many designs and everything else. So each page is completely unique and different for SEO purposes. But this was all done through through Rose CSVI. Now, this site here that I've showed in other items is actually an incredibly complex site. Items such as, oh, let me share this instead. Hang on, sorry, there we go. Can you guys see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything that you see on this homepage is actually a core Joomla module. The Learning Center is a article category module. The distributor spotlight, these are banner module. The industry solutions is tags. This is also these 4 items here are also an article category module. And how can you use an article category module with J2 Store? It's very simple, because they use articles. Then we just tie into the product object in there. And once you figure out exactly how to do that, which is just 2 little tiny lines of code, then the opportunities are infinite, and you can use it anywhere you need to. And then, this main top module is an article. And then this is a menu module that's scrolling across. But these are all core Joomla items. But underneath it all, you have products such as, this truck scale, that this is not even their most complex item, but this has 128 different product variations for an advanced variant, where depending on what you select, can be completely different for images, and for any of the additional items, including specifications, the resources. These are custom fields that allow their team to upload resources. the options and accessories. These are also custom fields here that allow them to select, additional sub products that would go with this. Industries, these are tags. So whatever industry tags they tag these products with also goes back to the industry page that then displays all the products as well. So everything's fully, but the entire site is integrated with Microsoft Dynamics GP, both directions. So when somebody from one of their 12 locations around the country adds an actual order that they took over the phone, it gets pushed into J2 Store as an order. And when, so that customer, the dealer, can log in and actually see that order as well as their ones they've placed online. But they can also, when they place an order here, it gets pushed directly into their system. And then at midnight, there's a cron job that runs that then checks to see if there's any price changes between their pricing and the pricing on the website, and it updates it. They also have the ability for their own team to go on a product by product basis to update pricing if they need to. Everything on the front end can also be fully edited without, half their team doesn't even know there's a back end to Joomla. They're able to go through, because it's using core Joomla, they're able to now go through as a, because I'm now logged in as a super user, I can click on the edit button, and this will allow me to now go in and be able to do everything that I need to do to manage every one of these product variations. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. There's 7 pages times, I think, 30 or 20 or whatever it is. But each one of these, expands. And so this looks different than what most are used to seeing when you think of J2 Store, because there's been a lot of time put into this. So the good thing is a lot of the time I put into this didn't go for nothing, because it gives the ability to now bring a lot of these changes over to the actual J2Commerce extension. One last thing, the dealer price list here is also using a menu link from Rose CSVI that actually generates, I'm in both user groups, so for testing, so that's why I see 2 of these. But depending on what user group the user's in, they would get the different dealer pricing that's generated for that particular user and whatever user group they're in, and it's generated on the fly in a CSV file, so they can use it for whatever purposes that they need. But that's just the power of being able to integrate with things, and I can't wait to hear Roland's talk after this. So this is an example of a very complex site that has actually 3 to 5 employees of this company that work all week long to update this, add products, update products, and everything in between. And then the project that Olivier and I worked on, this is also J2 Store, Joomla 5 project. This was built all entirely core, minus the Akiva backup that we use, and J2 Store. But even things such as the become a sponsor, this is J2 Store. It's just a different look, and we're going to be creating looks like this. So for those of you, I'm sorry, go. Sorry, thank you. All right, can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is the JDay USA site, and this looks different than the normal J2 Store product pages. We're going to be releasing like a plan type template. So for those of you that are selling plans or digital items or extensions, that this will be easier for you to be able to add these. These different items here are custom fields that we just you have a sub form field that we're able to use. The answer to that question is I don't use page builders at all. These are all core Joomla, basically taking the Cassiopeia and then modifying it to what I need. But the important thing is that all this is a combination of core and Bootstrap 5. So there's our custom CSS file is probably like less than 100 lines total. Everything else is out of the box, is using really Bootstrap 5, classes and everything in between. But the power of this is that, such as an example, if I were to add this in the cart, one of the items that we're gonna be releasing is this Ajax sidebar cart that would allow people to add coupon codes if they wanted, gift certificates if they wanted to update the quantity. They can do it, in real time, or if they simply just wanted to, get rid of it altogether. But a lot of these tools are designed to give you a fighting chance for your stores, so you can compete with those that have a lot more templates to use from. I'm working on a project now that they're using UTheme for their store, and I see Jose's in here as well. So we'll have templates that will also be built using the UTheme framework. So you'll be able to style them using your normal UTheme templates, but be able to still have it carry over. So the idea here is we want to make it super easy, whether you are on a a core Joomla Bootstrap 5 site, UTheme site, or any of the other page builders. The easier we make it, and like we said at the beginning, if the why is big enough, then the how is easy. So that's what we're really excited about. The support we've gotten from the community. Some of the things that I do want to show you is what's to come, and an example is, I'm going to share this tab here. I'm starting to get the hang of this stuff. Actually, that's not what I didn't even want that one. I wanted this tab. Okay. So for those of you that have been editing products, it hasn't been the easiest experience on the eyes for the last couple of years since updating to Joomla 4 or 5. An example of what that would look like in this is a Joomla 4 site that I'm going to show you. This is basically the before. So if I wanted to update pricing, there's nothing terrible about this, but there's nothing incredibly sexy about this either. And it's been like this, since moving to Joomla 4 or 5. And so in the next major release, which is going to be 4.1, some of the things that we're going to be working on, this is now an updated version in 4.1 of a flex variant product. So as you can see now, it's more in line with what you're used to seeing when you're. Sorry, there we go. Just when I thought I had it all figured out. So this is what the new 4.1 product page is going to look like. Example for a flex variant, which is going to bring it much more in line with what everybody's used to seeing with the current Joomla 4 or 5 layouts. Images look a lot cleaner. Additional images also are more manageable. And if you wanted to, add additional ones, very easy to simply add or remove. And the coolest thing is underneath the hood, a lot of the jQuery has been removed and replaced with vanilla JavaScript. So all this is leading up to when the eventual time comes that we're going to be switching to J2Commerce from J2 Store. And what I mean by that is underneath the hood, everything else, it's going to come without any FOF and without any jQuery, so that way you can plug it into any Joomla site and not have to worry about having to load or jQuery conflicts or anything else. And product filters, just a lot of stuff that's just, in general going to be a lot cleaned up. And then the product variants here, for those of you that do have product variants, you're going to have a chance to see, hey, this is not only can you see the different variant types, but now it'll be easier to manage because you'll also have the product SKU next to it. So if you have a lot that are similar, and then you can actually look at the product SKU as well. And looking at this, it's much easier to manage. The reason why main image doesn't take up the whole area is because we're eventually going to be adding a thumb image for product variants. So that way it loads a smaller image when it's going through checkout or the emails, so it doesn't load the large image and bog things down. So as a whole, there's going to be a lot of cool things we're going to be adding, but right now we're just cleaning up stuff that, in my opinion, really needed to be cleaned up to help bring everybody to a good place. And then we can start to have some real fun. In case you didn't notice, one of the small things that was added is checkboxes. Some of my products can have 300 or 400 different product variations. To sit there and click the trash can on every single one of them is just mind numbing. So instead, now you can check the ones that you want to delete and simply click there if you wanted, and you can batch delete, specific ones at will. And the most important, my favorite part is the order page. We've seen that on the orders list in the last update, that we've seen updates here. So it definitely looks a lot cleaner and easier to manage than before. And the multi-vendor platform that you asked, we technically, it does have a vendor field and it can be used, although I don't know if the practicality of it actually will work, but it is something that Olivier and I have already discussed about working, because we want to be able to make it so third-party developers can load their extensions on our site and have them paid on our site, and they get, the majority of the revenue for that, but not have it sent to their site. As of now, if you have a J2 Store extension, then you don't have to send it to us, but you can send us the link to your page, and we will actually add it to our store with a link back to you. But obviously, if people are adding a bunch of items to their cart when the time comes, and they aren't able to add your item to the cart, it would affect conversions. So that would be something that we are definitely going to be working towards, hopefully sooner rather than later. But going into the product page itself, now it's going to look a lot different than what you're used to. It's going to be easier to manage for those of you that have clients that use J2 Store. They're going to think that you are God when you update their J2 Store to this, because it's going to be a lot easier for them to manage their items. They also, with payment plugins and shipping plugins now, the vendors will be able to load their logos, and when if it's built correctly, and we'll have those developer documentation updated as well. It'll also display, the FedEx one. Not sure why it's not showing here, but it should normally show the FedEx logo. Update tracking. They can update the tracking number very easily here. They can see the PayPal transactions here. And then if we scroll down, the order history should now make it easier to see. Okay, here's the email icon. That means an email was sent out with these. And also there's going to be some documentation updated here. So for extensions that want to use the order history functionality, they can then add their own icon in there if there's something that gets added here for that reason. And then on the right side over here, as you can see, it follows you all the way down. So that way you're never without missing a customer note. And also you can even see now how long the customer has been a customer of yours, how many total sales does that customer have. So when you're looking at an order, you're able to very quickly also be able to see this is a repeat customer, this is a customer we've had for a long time, or it's a first time customer. And then also being able to see the billing, shipping information, and also if you wanted to update the order and change it because customer calls in and they needed to add something or they needed to remove something, then now you can easily update the order, and it actually looks like a page that you can update. And so as you go through, it definitely makes things much easier to update and change, as well as if they have additional addresses that they want to switch to. And as they go through the rest of these pages, just to show you a difference, the shipping address has not been touched. And this is what it used to look like before, although it still looks better now than it did before. But if I wanted to change choose a different alternate address, this was the experience before. And so obviously switching here to an alternate address is a much cleaner process. And so the cool thing is you can create new orders in here. You can update and edit existing orders in here. And, all that is very easy to manage and be able to see. So there's a lot of exciting updates and changes that are coming. We're excited. Yeah, I think I pretty much covered almost everything. How we handle payments for changed orders is there is a step here when we edit after we've updated the items where you can basically click save and next, and it will then see if anything's changed in the price, and then it'll update the difference and charge the difference, or in some cases, if it's a refund, I'll still have to go through that process. Um, but yeah, basically this stage, when you go through the items area, if I'm looking to add another item to the order, I can simply start typing in a variant ID and it'll show up, whichever one that I want to add. And then it's just like I'm going through the checkout on the front end, only I'm going through the checkout on the back end, and then it'll scoop up and see if there's any difference in price, if I wanted to remove one of these, or so on. And then when I click on save and next, it saves it, goes to the next stage, where then I can update the shipping if we needed to. I can change the payment method altogether. And then if I click save and next, then it'll go through that process as well, whichever, whether it's PayPal or credit card or any one of these other payment methods that we select. Hopefully that answers your question, Roland. And that's about it. So I think the next phase that we're in after 4.1 is really going to be starting to transition on the aesthetic side from J2 Store to J2 Commerce. I think there's enough people now that are referring to it as J2 Commerce that I feel like sometimes, I don't know exactly, and Olivier is the same way, like, do we call it J2 Store, J2 Commerce? But I think everybody's really taken to that name pretty quickly. And, and I just say the support has been amazing from the community. I see a lot of people that have contributed to the J2 Commerce project already that are in here, and none other, that's contributed more so far than Brian Tiemann, who's really helped bring me along. I know that, like Olivier, I normally would work by myself, and when I would upload stuff on GitHub for my own projects, I didn't have to worry about anybody double checking my stuff because it was just my mess, and I can have my mess however I wanted it. So having to work in a team atmosphere, and very similar to the Joomla core team and the way they work, it's been really a crash course for me, and I applaud Brian for his patience with me in having to stumble myself around, but we're getting there. And in the meantime, we've really had 4 updates in the last 30 days since this whole thing came about. That's one less update than they've had the last 3 years prior. So I think for those of you that have stuck with this project, that have stuck with us, the best is yet to come. For those of you that have ever concerned that the same thing might happen again, I don't know what the future is going to bring, but I can, I can tell you this, is that if it's difficult for me to migrate to the next version with 55 stores, then I promise you it's not going to happen. So it's got to be easy and seamless for me to be able to handle my 55 stores, so you can handle your 1 or 5 or 10 stores, however many you manage. So the whole idea here is that, just keep taking advantage of the updates. It's going to get you closer and closer to a spot where you'll be able to eventually switch to the J2 Commerce extension that will be, a true Joomla 5 without backwards compatibility plugin ready, and also Joomla 6 ready. And we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. I've spent over a decade studying e-commerce in general, best practices. I've, paid thousands of dollars for all sorts of resources, between email marketing, which, by the way, we're almost done with our AC mailing integration, J2 Store, that I've used myself on my own projects that allow you to drag and drop products directly into the WYSIWYG editor, and where they'll look just like your own store products do, where you can say if they bought product A, then send them this email 3 days later, and then 8 days later, send them this email, and you can build out entire email sequences that would, based on if, what they bought and how long ago they bought the item. So you can mix in some knowledge, you can mix in some upsells, some cross sales, and anything in between, and all that good stuff. So I think that's pretty much about it. I got 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
And
There was a question from Sigrid
yes,
about product bundles.
product bundles. We already have those. I just need to test that as well as group products. Yeah, so like I said, for those of you guys that are waiting for an extension to update, send us a note, because, otherwise we're going to go through what we think are the, low-hanging fruit, the easiest ones to get up there quickest. But if it's going to prevent some of you from upgrading sooner rather than later, then we can bump up those higher up the list if we have a reason to, if that makes sense. So let us know. And also, we do appreciate the patience with those that have support issues. We aren't getting paid for this. We're really doing this so we could bring stability. And the idea is that this is something that third-party extension developers can start developing additional extensions and start getting paid. And also the users can start selling more. You'll have more confidence with your clients. You'll have more confidence with your own stores. And the idea is that if we do this right, then we're all going to be better off as a whole than just one section. So that's kind of where Olivier and I are at. And I appreciate the London Joomla user group for giving us the ability to kind of get a chance for the rest of the world to get a chance to know us as well. So for product variants, like in the case of a watch selection, does J2Commerce handle image building for like strap variants, face variants? Yes, all that. When you're dealing with flex variants, all of that is can be done. Let's see. I think my screen is still being shared here.
Yeah.
So if I were to go into options, and let's say that in this case we're going to talk about the color, and I wanted to, I can upload a color image here for each of these. Or if we're going to talk about strap variants, and they want to give them an option, then I would create an option. Instead of color, it would say straps. And then I can upload a picture of the different straps. And then when they go there, they would have the option to select not just the actual watch itself, but then they could also select the different straps and go from there. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, yes, and yes. So at this time, not possible to do a bundled product. It can be if somebody sends me a note, which seems like there's already 2 in here that are looking for that. Then yeah, and there were a lot of extensions that J2 Store had updated to Joomla 4. That because I had a developer and I bought almost all of them, luckily I had access to all of them. So a lot of these I do already have. I just need to test and make sure that what they've done is going to still work, because Joomla has changed, and between 4 and 5 from when they did a lot of these. But in most cases, I think that they should work, but just requires a little testing. And knowing now that we have a few people that are looking for that, then we can add that. Don't be surprised if in the next couple of days you see it.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, I've got a couple of questions, and I was going to open it out to anyone else. Mine are kind of more for core Joomla. So are you going to be using the new templating system that's been coming more and more?
The templating system when on the back end,
Oh,
like,
sorry, the email template.
Emails.
I would love to. I mean, the more we use, core Joomla, then the less that we have to maintain on our end as much, because it's already plugging into something that's already existing. So I look forward to seeing that link Brian posted about what J2 Store looked like back in 2012. But
yeah, Jay said I just noticed that you can't actually see the screen in the video.
Oh yeah, we have to watch. Yeah, I was from Jane Beyond. Okay, that they had a presentation.
It was at Joomla Day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I
Nice.
mean, Martina has been extending the email template, so she might be one to tap into to get some knowledge on that one. The other thing is that the module, the Omni module, as we have in newer Joomla, where we're bringing a lot of the modules together, that might be of use to you guys, I'm thinking, because then you're effectively building your code into just one module rather than lots and lots of different ones.
Right. No, and that's that's really the reason, the only reason, I'm just kidding, not the only reason why I brought Olivier on board. But I know that, he spent a lot more time working on the core project. So, to be able to integrate these things, we needed somebody that already is kind of in that system. So, Olivier, make sure you put that on your list of things to work on.
Oh yeah, it's already on my list.
It makes
and
sense.
then,
Yeah.
And then another item that we are going to definitely integrate, which for obvious reasons, considering that we both are on the same Joomla team, is we are going to be rolling out some really cool guided tours for J2Commerce in the back end that will be able to show people, especially first-time users, here's how you properly set up this type of product, and here's how you set up the flex variant, here's how you set up a bundled product, and and various different training tutorials. The idea is twofold. Is one, it's going to help the J2Commerce users discover things that maybe they didn't know. Half the customer service issues I've resolved so far weren't a bug per se, but more of just the user not knowing how to properly use it. And once I was able to go in there and get them set up, then they were able to continue selling and not have some of the issues that they had been dealing with. And the other side to that is that other extension developers that do use J2Commerce are going to be able to see how powerful it is to integrate these guided tours into their own extensions, because it will also help reduce a lot of their customer service that they have to handle, which does take manpower and time, because they're able to address these in the actual extension themselves. So it's just another step towards integrating even further into the core ecosystem.
Gary just raised a point about workflows and integrating that into the system. I'm thinking there, you can have your own workflow to push items out and remind people to do the dispatch, as it were, if the order's gone through and all that sort of thing. So I can see workflows working. I had a particular, so I've used J2 Store and I've converted a few, but there's one left to do. It was interesting when Joomla 4 came out. I did an article on the magazine about 6 months after Joomla 4 came out, which was looking at the top 20 extensions in Joomla and how many had converted. And after 6 months, 18 of the top 20 extensions had converted to Joomla 4, apart from J2 Store and one gallery. And the gallery, the guy had abandoned it, so it was never going to convert. So it was the only main thing that was not converted in the top 20, which was a real shame because it stopped a lot of site owners from moving from Joomla 3 to Joomla 4. So this is brilliant. You're doing it, in such good standards, and I really applaud the going to vanilla JavaScript and what you've done there. It's just cleaning it up, stopping conflicts is just so great. So
Yeah, it's not great when we're doing the work, but great for you guys to enjoy it.
yes, yes.
I'm sorry,
it's-
Brian, you said
I
you
would
were going to
say-
say something?
Yeah, because the reason why it didn't go forward, J2 Store, is when you look at and Adam and Olivier are seeing that, when you look into the codes that exist, you can really see why it took so long to even get something that worked in Joomla 4, and why in the end Ramesh has given up on it, because he was doing so much of his own stuff. It's not even the FOF stuff; it's all the J2 HTML stuff that he done. And you got plugins that read other plugins in order to work, which and they just don't. And it's things like that, and that's why it just needs you're building on what I consider to be an excellent starting point. And you're taking all the ideas, but using solid, more maintainable code underneath it.
Yeah. I mean, his heart went out of it quite a long time ago, because we used to have him on JUG London right at the beginning, and he came on a few times, and then it's a long time. It's way before COVID and that. He said to me, "We're just not making money from J2 Store. We're making money from the services and using it as a service." Basically, they were having a large hosting platform, and they were doing stores for people on that, and they were using their code for that. And so they were the actual doing J2 Store for Joomla wasn't making them the money. So they just seemed to just give up and then just tread water for a long time. So when it came to the conversion, their heart wasn't in it, and their own code for their own project had diverted so much from the core that it was a slog to get it back.
But the other mistake that he made, which hopefully doesn't get repeated, was when someone said, "Can it do this?" They went, "Oh yes, here you are, I'll write that," and they added it in. And "Can it do this?" Yes, and they added it in. And it went from being a super simple to use system to a super complex user interface that with a million things that people didn't want. There was no gatekeeper to say, "Yes, you can do this, but you're the only person in the world that's going to need it, so I'm not going to put it into the core products." He just shoved everything into the core, and that's where it starts to fall over. When you start doing things like that. Because if you look back when I first saw it back in 2012, I mean, it didn't even have a stock system, or it was just a simple cart. And he got bombarded with requests, and he just said yes to everything, and then regretted it ever since.
So before Brian takes you on board too much there, we wanted to say yes to coming back when you've actually done the full release. And actually, it would be really great if you would do a session on doing those things. So walk us through a simple product variant and the different configurations, so that people can see how easy it is with your product, your system, to build a shop.
Yeah, and I'll say this is I agree with Brian on everything that he said. I'll also say this is that looking underneath the hood and what it's done for me myself over the last 10 years using this. Those of you that came out here for Joomla Day and that had the barbecue at my house here in Nashville. The house that I live in came from a project that was built on J2 Store. So out of the box, it's powerful enough that it could change, your life as a developer that's building out a project for a client of yours. And it can also help them as well, because obviously the more that they earn, then they're going to want to expand, and they're going to keep throwing money for you to keep developing and adding more features. But I believe after, researching other e-commerce, I've built, a project for the Girl Scouts on Shopify, unfortunately, but it was a marketing company that hired me to do it. So I have experience with other e-commerce platforms that are really doing things well. Everything that it currently has, that J2 Store offers out of the box are basically the essentials. But yeah, if somebody needs something custom, then it should be able to be added as a plugin that allows that person to tie it in to the overall system. But for what it's done for the last 12 to 13 years since it first came out, it really has been ahead of its time. And now it kind of hit the wall when, on its own limitations because it didn't stick to core. We're bringing it back to core so we never run into that issue again. And it'll be much easier for others to start their store, integrate it, and everything else. I've done things with the activity log that most people don't even pay attention to. But imagine being able to track every step of the checkout through an activity log and not have to use, even Google Analytics, which, doesn't always paint the best picture, but being able to use server analytics based off the activity log to be able to see where your weakest link is in your checkout and, or a subscriptions plugin, who actually just canceled their subscription, who just renewed another one, and be able to log all that and be able to actually get metrics from that to be able to use to further grow your store based on real numbers and not what we perceive numbers. So there's a lot of cool things that are in the works. Those of you that currently have a J2 store, J2Commerce site, don't go anywhere. It's only going to get better. And if there's things you think that would make the process better, send them our way. Chances are we've already heard it, but doesn't mean that we've heard it all. And this is the time to do it because we're both fired up and looking to really turn the page to where it needs to be, so then we can help everybody, including us, get to where we want to be.
It's I mean, I did say to you guys when we were talking before, I mean, a lot of us who have clients who are on J2 Store, they are really desperate for the conversions and for this to happen. And I hear that you're saying you're not taking any money for it, but I mean, a buy a beer sort of donate thing would be help our consciences before you start charging.
When we start the licensing system, which as far as the little bit that we've talked about it, I mean, and if this doesn't show everybody on this call, anybody watching, where our heart is, the fact that people have been, I mean, you're not the only one, that has asked us about collecting money. We just want to make sure everybody's whole first, and then we can all have fun doing this. But as of now, our heart is in getting everybody to where they need to be. Let's get you up to Joomla 5, or if you don't have your server updated yet, but let's get you to where off of Joomla 3. And, this way, then we can all figure out, what needs to be. But as far as pricing, I don't think it's going to be any different than what you were expecting and what you've been paying before. So it's not like we're going to start doubling everything up and now you're stuck. It's going to be fair. And the reality is this, is that a good e-commerce store is successful because it has a product that is, really hard for somebody to not buy, and it's easy for them to buy. And we want to make it hard for you to leave and easy for you to pay that because you're making money. And if you're making money, then pay the license, and that's the best way of paying us back.
That's brilliant. One of the things that Gary and I, we've been looking around for Joomla 6 and things that people have been inquiring about. One of the things that came out in Joomla Day Dach was there was one talk about doing and it's been tried before, a kind of unified payment system. So having a Joomla base payment setup schema almost, so that people can feed the payment system that they want into a standardized way that a shop would take the payment or whatever. And I know from integrating payment gateways myself in the past, they can all be very different and have their own esoteric ways. As you're actually doing quite a lot with payment gateways, obviously to extend this and bring it up to scratch, have you noticed anything that could be along that way, that there might be a way of, rather than making one each totally individual, that we could actually make a way that we could integrate them better? And so you could almost give a developer kit for people that wanted to then bring in the payment gateways themselves?
Yeah, there's already in the documentation in the developer section, there is somewhat of a payment plugin basic kit to start from. I actually started using it for a payment plugin myself, and found that I needed to use some of the already existing ones for reference. Simply, J2 Store has its own internal functions for the payment system to work, but we are going to be bringing it to, Joomla 5 plugin standards, the way that it needs to be built. And then Olivier and I can definitely look at, maybe standardizing some of the functions, but each one is different in a sense of, how it integrates with the different payment platforms. So I don't know if it's going to be something as easy as allowing somebody to, plug in something for PayPal is going to be totally different than authorized.net, then Stripe, not to mention there's subscriptions. So, then some of them may save a token, which outside of the EU would be something that, I know out here we use a lot, where it makes it easy. You don't have to enter a credit card all the time. But there's a lot of different factors that come into play. And I don't know. I mean, I would love to see what that would look like. I just don't know if having a standardized, easy way for anybody to just plug in their API information into a core payment plugin, and then where does it go from there? But what was that?
It's me. I have a payment extension, of course, so in which I support a lot of extensions, and I thought your question was more towards Philip, what you said about like a common payment API within Joomla, so that all extensions would use the same API. So any payment provider.
Yeah, that's one way it's been talked.
Okay.
Joomla has done that or tried to get that into Joomla. It's still on their website, a common payment API. So my extension that connects to any Tech Joomla extension uses the same code. So across all their extensions, it's the same, but not across any other extension, of course. It's been tried in the past, but sort of failed and never made it. Because I also don't think it belongs in the core. So
No. It's one of those things that if we did strike up a standard, then it might make it easier.
Oh, absolutely agree. I mean, it would be the best if we could get a common API, payment API for Joomla extensions, so that any extension that wants to do payments would use that same API.
Like we did for the CAPTCHA, right? Something that would similar. It's hard because
organizations like that are worth thinking about, but yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if anybody's really in the position that could tie into that, it would be us, since we're basically rebuilding everything, and this would be the time for us to do that. So we may have to, Olivier, connect with maybe Brian and Roland to kind of, because I think the only reason why it wouldn't work is if there's no e-commerce options or anything built in to use it, then there wouldn't be really why would somebody want to add that just to add it if there's no utility that goes with it? So if they have it, and let's say, just in theory, J2Commerce were to tie into that, if it's something that that we would do, then that would make sense for, because then others would almost be forced to do it. Otherwise, they would be the oddball, not doing it. But we'll have to explore that. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to add something to the core that the core doesn't use. Usually things are added to the core when there are functions that are needed to be using it.
Yeah,
in the
it's
core.
like 80%. I mean,
Yeah.
I know, Adam, obviously you've got a lot of e-commerce sites, but I mean, I've got about 100 sites and about 3 of them are e-commerce. So, and I think a lot of people, the majority of their sites are not e-commerce. So it isn't a core thing, but it's one of those things that if in manual.developer.org, if in the manual, we can actually get a kind of a common API or a common schema then it would really help development and cutting out a lot of basically reinventing the wheel each time.
Yeah.
No, what you see happen with extensions is that a lot of extensions don't implement it the way I would expect it as a gateway provider, because a lot of extensions force me as a payment provider or payment gateway developer to know about the logic of their extension, what to do after the payment has come back. Then I need to update the order instead of just telling that extension, hey, it's been paid, do your thing. And that's kind of logic that doesn't belong to me as a payment extension developer. That's logic that belongs to the extension that wants to have a payment done.
But it's an interesting conversation to have, and one of those things to think about. And Mattermost is great for a lot of developers to get there. So we have the developer channel in there. It might be one of those things to talk about and put in there to see.
One thing before we hand it off, the workflow idea. Maybe would it make more sense to have the workflow more on the order side?
Exactly.
Instead of the product side. So when the order comes through, then you would, move it along and then, send this email at this stage, and you almost use that to build out, the whole process after, the order. That's a good idea.
That was what Gary was thinking, but yeah, totally.
Okay.
Because then you can also do things like trigger things to tell people who are not part of necessarily the order, but getting the product together, the dispatch and all of that sort of thing. So yeah.
What I find an interesting discussion also is what Sigrid said about reporting on your sales or whatever.
One of the
something that belongs in an e-commerce component, or should be a component on its own?
Well, I built a component on my own that already does that, which I will show you guys briefly, and it really gives you a whole
to me,
bird's eye
it's more
view.
an expertise that belongs in its own course.
Well, I think we're going to probably use some of the concepts from. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is one of my shops, and basically a lot of this is all based on, that takes their estimates for last week, also what their average, sale per day is, or average sale, what their average sale per day. It's able to start calculating how many days are remaining left in the week and where they should be, and also give them a bird's eye view. But things like customer lifetime value that nobody really knows, that to be able to look at this and be able to see what is the average customer value. So when they bring in this case, a dealer, they can know this is what our average customers are worth. So when you're marketing and you're spending money on ad spend, and let's say, your average customer value is $400, and you're upset because you just paid, $100 for a $110, order, and you think you lost money. If you know that your average customer is worth $400, that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for that one-time sale. But other things like what your top products are, which can all be exported into a CSV or text or a PDF, who your top customers are. Product views, web sales, sales by, for the ones that have the subscription plugin, you can see what your upcoming subscriptions, like, how many are you expected tomorrow and the next day, how much came in from subscriptions versus one-time sales. So something like this that we're going to eventually be including as part of the reporting mechanism for J2Commerce. But this is actually, the plugin that we use for this. This is JStats component that we built. Also, the core of this, the free version, is for Joomla core. So you can see how many articles were created this month, how many new users, views on blogs, who your top authors were. And this just happens to be the J2 store plugin that we built for this. But I think, was this kind of what your idea was?
Sigrid?
Hi, thanks for all the details. I just wrote it in the chat as well. I was thinking more into like tax and accounting, like to every month to create a list in, because I mean, we have very different tax rate. No, not very different, but we have two tax rates, main tax rates, VAT for in some shops, and then you have to see which products you have to you sold for that tax rate and the other one, and you have to do that every month, and then talk to your accountant to know what tax you have to pay. So that's I really like the statistics, but then I mean, I'm fine with an export too, or my clients, but that's often a use case to have the reporting for.
Well, maybe if only we knew somebody that can mess around with data and be able to create a pre-made layout for taxes and, you know, pull it from the database.
Yeah.
I don't know if Roland, if you happen to know any runners around that might fit that bill, but
Well, actually, I'm doing this. Well, of course, I have my subscription sales also on my Joomla site, and I actually I have a separate custom script basically, which copies them over to Exact, which is an online accounting system, which has all the customers there, all the sales, and from the accounting package, I just can click submit and we'll send it to the tax department. So that will do all the reporting for me in there.
I'm also using like the export import, like with our CSVI, but I'm using like AltaBrains, Alta reports to build my own SQL queries and to export stuff. For example, you can build sums there, but you have to build your own SQL, MySQL queries.
Yeah,
so
well, you can put those in our CSVI too, of course, but you still need to know the database schema and how to do what and whatever.
Yeah, but you cannot build sums, right? You cannot.
No, exactly. So you're stuck to simple queries, basically. The thing with reporting is, though, you often have multiple queries that you pull together and then show it nicely in a report. Yeah, you would basically need a real reporting extension. Something like what we used to call like crystal reports.
I mean, I'm using that Alta report stuff. That's nice, but you have to know your database stuff then.
Yeah, exactly. So, and our CSVI is also not a reporting extension. Same as it's not really a full migration extension either.
I mean, J2 Store had this report, and for one client, we really like coded the sums and everything. So they had it for each text group and could do it for 1 month. So I can send you that, but it was basically a copy of the existing report and just adding some sums there.
If you send it to me, we can work on it and then work with you to maybe add an additional reporting feature for that. But yeah, I mean, those are things that there's a lot of, you know, custom plugins that I know that Ramesh had, you know, would send me for, you know, rare use cases, like for subscriptions, to be able to allow people to add multiple of the same subscription, which normally you wouldn't but because we were selling products, you know, they needed to have the ability to do that, which, by the way, we do have a tie-in for the subscriptions plugin for those that want to sell products in subscription format, which is also a lot of revenue that will allow the customers to actually add and remove items from their upcoming subscription. It takes all the subscriptions and combines them into a single date, so that way somebody doesn't have 4 different subscriptions getting shipped 4 different times in a month and driving the store owner mad and making, you know, UPS and FedEx happy. But there's a lot of functionality there, but I don't want to take too much more time because I'm eating into Roland's time, and we want to be able to really see what he has cooked up for us.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's been really, really heartening to see the development already, and make me feel really, really happy.